Today is the 11th, and we are going to visit Great Falls State Park. Amy was here as a child, right?
Yes. The whole family went here on quite a few trips.
I've never been here, so it's a first for me. We're going to go out and see the falls, and then we may drive over if we have time to the Maryland side. You have to drive out the Beltway and back in for that. Yes, we're getting ready to watch a film on the Great Falls. So, Amy, how's your trip been so far?
Good. Real reminiscent.
As you can see, as most places in Washington during September are pretty well not crowded. So we haven't had any problems, except downtown last weekend. It was crowded. We may try to venture down that way one more time before we leave. Now the show will begin. And this is Great Falls, and it's beautiful out through here today. Today's going to be a very nice day for us to walk. So Amy and I are going to take a walk down this canal area and then back up the river, and we'll get a shot of the gorge, the canal. The Great Falls Gorge out there. I can hear it from here. Now, and it stretched all the way down through here, 1798. That's when it was first built. Can't see the water today hardly from here. Here's the actual canals, I guess the parts that are remaining of them that are further on down on the canal system. And looking back up there, you'll see the holding basin Amy and I just walked through. Beautifully preserved part of it, about the only part that's been preserved, it looks like, maybe close to being natural. How you doing, Amy?
Oh, okay.
A little hot. It's supposed to be cooling off tonight. We'll probably have a fire, hopefully, back at camp when Tony and Natalie come over. We'll walk over and see what this is. Okay, here's the national marker for the locks, and this is the first of 5 locks, it says. standing at the move over just a little bit, honey.
This is a park that I remember when we lived here in Washington very much. Back in the 60s, they used to have amusement park rides, and then later on, in the early 70s, they took them out and they took up the merry-go-round, which is right here. My mother took us kids here one afternoon for a nice treat, and this is the old merry-go-round, which will probably still always be here. And we're going to take the rest of the afternoon to enjoy walking through it. And we'll share the memories with Joe.
This is inside the carousel, looking through a window. Hopefully you can get some pictures without it
Just like what I remember.
reflecting too much. Glen Echo.
Little carousel. I rode that carousel with my mom, my brothers. Yeah, she took us on there.
They're working on something new here. Let's on over to this building. Had the bumper cars, Amy.
Yeah.
And then there was some sort of adventure theater over here.
Yeah, there used to be a petting zoo, a small one. Changed a whole lot. They're building new stuff in here.
Back around to the carousel.
Yeah.
Glen Echo Park.
I visited when I was a child. First visit I remember going with my family with the Dudnicks, friends of ours, a day trip. And kindergarten, I went through a trip here a couple times, and I also remember going from elementary school, having nice day trips, picnics, riding the rides, playing with the playground equipment. And we're going to see if it's still the same. I may even get on some of the playground equipment and act like a kid again. Railroad tracks right behind me. This is the little train that I used to ride with my schoolmates, and also maybe one time with my family. And it's still here after all these years, the little cabin on the train. Take y'all around the park. It seemed real big to me then. Yeah, it's still quite big to me now. It's still here.
Is that what you make it sound like, Amy?
Yeah, something like that. I don't really remember the sounds exactly, but I remember it staying low. This is one of the playground equipment that I remember. It's original, it's still here. I played and slid down on it. Everything else here seems like it's all been replaced. But there was an actual simulation or reproduction of an aircraft that I climbed up into, which was about 6 feet off the ground. I climbed up to the back of the fuselage, climbed through it, and jumped out the other end. I was too scared to jump off because it was too high up. That looks like the original, one of the original pieces that was there playing. Everything else looks relatively new or replaced. But we can walk down through some more and see if anything else might be still here.
Okay. September 12th, Amy and I are down at Old Town Alexandria. We're going to look for a tour of the Potomac. And it's down at the marina. And we'll go on now and look, see if we can find us a tour. And
On board a boat. You want to see the Potomac. It's nice to be able to be on a boat again. I'm flying on a boat. It's warm. It's nice.
Hey, we're getting underway here. There goes a boat that had the rink name on it.
I remember that bridge. It's called the Chestnut Bridge.
Right. It's the Wilson Bridge, isn't it?
I know. We used to go under that bridge a lot, Joe. That boat. We used to many times go through that bridge on our way down to Arlington Ski Club, you know, and down on our other river trips.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Potomac Riverboat Company, we'd like to welcome you aboard the Mountain Haze. In the unlikely event of an emergency situation, you'll find both child and adult life preservers stored beneath the seats marked with a life preserve sign. Instructions on how to use the life vest are located on the back of the door in each bathroom on either side of the pilot house. This vessel is also equipped with a life ring and firefighting equipment. For your comfort, our concession stand will be open throughout the cruise. We're offering ice-cold beverages and fresh popcorn. If you have any questions during the tour, the crew or captain will be happy to assist you. For those of you who choose to do so, you are now free to roam about the boat as you wish. But we'd like to give warning to those who will be on the bow that an occasional spray of water might come your way whenever we cross another vessel's route. Our narration today will be easier to understand if you're familiar with some basic nautical terms. The front of the vessel is the bow, the rear is the stern, the left side is the port side, and the right side is the starboard side. We may be affected by another vessel's wake while cruising today. The wake is the wave-like motion of the water caused by the boat's movement. You can see our wake by looking off the stern or either side of the mountain haze.
Yep. Same old water. It smells like Potomac, like it always did.
Yeah, up your head. I was going to just zoom up on the Washington Monument where we're headed.
It's like being on our boat again.
And this is called a what? The Monument Tour, is that right? So,
We have just departed the port of Alexandria, Virginia. Alexandria was first established in the early 1600s by Scottish tobacco merchants and grew rapidly as a tobacco port city. At one time, early settlers envisioned a New Jersey. Principal ports of Yorkville, Virginia, and Baltimore, Maryland superseded Alexandria's ambitions. Much of Old Town Alexandria retains its colonial charm. Many of the houses, inns, and taverns that existed in the 1700s are still here today. Even some of the cobblestone streets built by Russian prisoners of war have survived and are still in use, such as the stretch of Prince Street between Lee and Union Streets, just one block south of King Street. On the starboard side, just beyond Benjamin number 6, lies Queen Anne's Wharf. Established in 1669 as a port of entry
that?
Channel 2 on the right, where it's got the yacht club. All the way up there on the end on the right. Where it splits. Over this over the road up there. Many trips up down okay. For Christmas or holidays.
Got the subway running over there.
Merry Christmas, you go pick up Graham Vernon here at the airport.
Ronald Reagan National Airport.
It's called National Airport now. It's not Reagan
There's Amy's Fat Man Church. That's your Fat Man Church down in nice
we always
cathedral.
call it Steve. I think it started that. It looks like the silhouette of that during sunset. It's like Batman. You see it in a certain angle. You see the main steeple. And in the roof, it looks like flames.
That's coming back up the river at night,
Yeah.
after dark.
Oh, yeah. Or you're driving down on the main artery highway. You can also see it. Never noticed that.
On January 13th, an Air Florida jet taken off from National Airport behind us pancaked onto the 14th Street bridges and landed at the base of the 4th Bridge in the Laguna Canyon. The cause of the crash was determined to be ice on the plane's wings. starboard side, towards the base of the Lincoln Memorial, is an innocent flight of steps, which also carries the rather infamous name of Watergate. Pierre LaFont, designer of the state of Washington, intended this to be a gateway to the city. He envisioned visiting dignitaries arriving by boat and being greeted by the president and his cabinet. They would then proceed up the steps to carriages waiting on the circle. With advancements in transportation and communications, this area was unfortunately never used for that purpose. Starboard side is the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, which houses 3 theaters. Talent from around the country and around the world present events covering a wide spectrum of performing arts. In 1958, President Eisenhower signed legislation providing for the establishment of a national cultural center in the city that could belong to the entire country. President Kennedy encouraged the project and organized preliminary fundraising efforts. President Johnson also gave his support, and in 1964 signed a law designating the center as the official memorial in Washington to President Kennedy. Architect Edward Durrell Stone designed the center with 5 levels. The main level houses the 3 theaters. The concert hall is a large stable frame and seats 2,750 people. The 3 lower levels are for parking, and the roof terrace has 3 restaurants. On this side, beyond these glass doors, is the Grand Foyer, which serves as a central lobby for all 3 theaters. It runs the full length of the building, 630 feet. Inside the foyer is the
Kennedy Center. This is where I went on a school field trip in junior high school to a National Symphony Orchestra. Very beautiful inside. This is an experience I'd like to experience again.
It was on the 6th floor of the last building you see located on the
The Watergate Towers.
National Campaign Headquarters.
Never got to go in them, but seen them many
Eventually
times.
led to the political downfall of late President Richard Nixon and several of his key staff. Power is scheduled to begin trips late this summer. For those interested, Thompson's, Fletcher's, and Swain's Law all rent bikes, canoes, and rowboats. These are National Park Service facilities. Our Georgetown ticket booth has brochures and maps on these facilities, as well as other places of interest in Georgetown and the surrounding area.
It's Wisconsin Avenue.
Ahead of us, you can see the dock at Georgetown. Georgetown is the oldest section of the District of Columbia, although it was not originally part of the city. In 1789, Georgetown was incorporated, given a charter, and named an official port of entry with a custom house by Congress. The custom house was located at the intersection of Wisconsin Avenue and K Street, about 200 yards from our dock. Throughout the 18th century, Georgetown was a prosperous tobacco port for the planters of southern Maryland. The introduction of steam navigation, the competition of the railroads, and the growth of the capital made Georgetown lose its commercial importance. In 1871, Georgetown lost its charter and was made part of the district. It remained a pleasant and quiet community until
all the way up to the end there.
when it became a sought-after place to live by many of Washington's
This is where I came the other
As a
day,
national historic
down here.
landmark, there are many fine examples of Federalist and Georgian architecture. Today, Georgetown is a thriving mecca of shops, restaurants, and homes. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be docking in Georgetown in just a few minutes. Those of you on the bow, please return to the covered portion of the boat behind the pilot house. If you're interested in returning to Alexandria on a later boat, please ask the captain or crew about the return trip schedule, and be sure to get a boarding pass.
Okay, we're going to stay a couple hours in Georgetown from our riverboat cruise, and we're walking up toward Wisconsin Avenue, and here's the canals along the back streets of Georgetown. There's beautiful Amy. Her bouffant is not messed up.
Not on the boat, I hope.
And there's Canal. He's on up.
I see the lock. Canal.
Yeah. And up this way is the main street. I guess it would be K Street. we're going to walk on up.
There's the lock.
Yeah, there's the lock.
It's an old canal. Look, you can see the bottom. Seaweed. There's a fish. Looks like a bluegill. Yeah, it's a bluegill. Water. I wouldn't want to swim in it. It's pretty nasty looking. It's stagnant.
Alright, you try it. Get over here, lady in blue. Get over here. You try it. Are you a horn player? Alright, here goes. Wait a minute. Free cola! Very good! Oh, the other round!
Go ahead, Amy. You walk on down there. I'll
Come on
get you.
down here now. I was giving away. Oh, did you? In class.
No.
Alright, can you yell at these people?
All right, welcome to Chesapeake and Ohio Canal National Historical Park. My name is Rufus, and I'll be your tiller. Do you guys know what the tiller does?
Guides the boat.
Well, I do that. I also tell you what to do. That's pretty funny, huh? I thought that about myself, actually. Well, there are a few main rules before you get on the boat. The first one, make sure you keep everything inside the boat. As you go up there into the lift lock, it's about a foot wider than the boat itself, and the boat weighs about 15 tons. So when it bounces around, if you're hanging out or anything like that, you're going to get squished, and that doesn't feel very good. So make sure you keep everything inside the boat. The second rule, that piece of wood where Dave is sitting is called the raceway. It's called that because you race up and down it. And if you're leaning over like this, or your camera's on there, or something like that, we might kick it, we might step on it. And that's not good either, so make sure you keep everything off the raceway. There's two metal pieces over there with the ropes attached to them, and the two over there are called cleats. And as you can tell, these ones are working as our parking brakes right now, and that second rope is going to be attached to the mules. And when 2,000 pounds of mule pulling against this 15-ton boat, it gets really tight. Your fingers are in there, they're going to shoot right off. It looks kind of neat, but it doesn't feel very good. So whether you keep your fingers on your hands rather than in the canal. And some other rules they would have if you were riding this canal in the 1870s would be no drinking alcohol, no smoking cigarettes, no gambling, no knife play or gun play or horse play, no hullablues or hootenannies, and most importantly, no criticizing the crew. All right? That's a very important one. So if you guys have your tickets, we could tear the small part from the big part and give the small part to our man Dave.
Historical Park. Now that's a great big long name for a great big long park. We run 184 and a half miles from Georgetown to Cumberland, Maryland. Your first question should be, if you run from Georgetown to Cumberland, why are you named the Chesapeake in Ohio? In the 1800s, Georgetown was a major seaport dealing primarily in Maryland tobacco. And we wanted to increase the number of schooners that came into here, into Georgetown, at the waterfront, because Alexandria, Virginia, right across the river, was our biggest competitor. Well, we looked out here and the Potomac River is 90 feet deep. If you go 16 miles upriver, you hit the Great Falls, which is exactly what it sounds like. The Potomac River drops 70 feet in one spot. Nowadays, Olympic kayaking teams go out there to practice, but you cannot put a big schooner on a 60-foot drop on a river. So we had to try something different. The Erie Canal up in New York had just been completed in the 1800s. Didn't take very much money and didn't take long to build. And it made New York City an international seaport. So the merchants of Georgetown said, get us a canal. The reason the merchants said it was because in those days, the government did not pay for what were called internal improvements, roads, railroads, and canals. It wasn't mentioned in the Constitution, so it was illegal. But it was very important to improve transportation so that people would move out to the frontier and we could bring those raw resources into the factories. To show you how important the government thought a canal was, the President of the United States, John Quincy Adams, came to our groundbreaking ceremony July 4th, 1828. And it was a pretty glorious event. The Marine Band was there. The President speechified a little bit. He took that gold shovel and he went right into a rock. This was embarrassing because the President was a little man and people, his opponents, said he was weak. So he moved over a little bit and he did something gentlemen never did in the 1800s. He took his jacket off. And people were sort of looking at each other. He took that shovel. This time, it was a tree stump. This is embarrassing. People are laughing at the President of the United States. So he did something that nobody did outside. He rolled up his sleeves. And I mean, people were starting to get this look. And what he did next actually made ladies faint. It was reported in the newspaper the next day. The President of the United States unbuttoned his top collar button. He looked around for a soft patch of dirt and he picked it up. I assume he showed it to the press and he declared, "Perseverance!" It was a good choice of words because it was going to take perseverance to build this canal, to operate it, and to change it into a national park. Now, I know some of you are sitting there saying, "Oh my goodness, I paid $8 and this woman is sitting at the dock running her mouth." That's what you thought? You sent those waves over here. I want you to know we've already started our journey. Now, which way are we going? We're going to go that way. Here is something you don't like to hear when you're on a boat. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going down. Look over there and see where the wet marks are on the stones. You see, the National Park Service put a roof on this boat. The original boats didn't have a roof. And with this roof, we can't get under that bridge to get into the lock. And so our captain, Rufus, has been lowering the water level so that we can get in there. The reason that we need to lower it, Georgetown, or need to get into that lock, Georgetown is at sea level. Cumberland, Maryland is 605 feet above sea level. And our mules don't mind pulling this boat, they just don't want to do it uphill at a 45-degree angle. So we need 74 lift locks to get us from Georgetown to Cumberland. And a lift lock is like an elevator for a boat. 74 of those will lift or lower this boat 605 feet. I know some of you feel sorry because the mules are pulling this boat. But I draw your attention to Rufus, our captain. How much do you weigh, Rufus?
150 maybe.
150 soaking wet. Last time he fell in the canal. He's twice as stubborn as those mules. And look, he's pulling the boat all by himself. So, way to go, Captain! And now, if you look up front, you'll see that one of our other crew members is pulling on a rope and pulling us into the lock. We'll go through this one twice, going out and coming back. Of the 74 lift locks on this canal, only 3 are still operational. 2 here in Georgetown, the one that we're going into, and the one behind us. In the fall, when we dry dock our boat, we go down through that lock. So if you ever see the boat going through this lock, you've got us on a rare day. Certain time of year, yeah. Then there are 4 little doors at each of the big gates. They're going to close the gates behind us. They're going to use a great big iron wrench called a lock key. They're going to crank on those iron rods, and they will open up or close the little doors at the bottom of the gates. In this matter, on the gates ahead of us, they're going to crank open 4 little doors and let 90,000 gallons of water in. Now, for you folks who have your cameras, if you promise to come back so I don't have to shout, you're more than welcome to go to the front of the boat on the left side to get where the water is being dumped. From the rope. You get your finger caught in there between that and the rope and it's gone. So if there's an aqueduct, that's a bridge for boats. It's a bridge that has water in it and boats can go across. We have one up at the Monocacy Aqueduct that has wrought iron railings and they are almost sawed in half from rope burns. Wrought iron. But let me introduce you to the stars of our... She is about 25 years old. She should be retiring in a few years. Before she joined the Park Service, she was a rodeo mule. She used to run the barrel races. She has spent her entire Park Service career here in Georgetown, and nothing much flusters her. She's like a beat cop on Saturday nights when bars get out. There isn't anything Frances hasn't seen. So she's real interested in doing her job, eating her hay, and going home at night. On the other side of that coin, on the right, is Ada. Ada is about 10 years old, and she was a farm mule before she joined the Park Service. She used to pull tree stumps for a living. And she really is a country gal. She does not like it here in the big city. This is her second season in Georgetown, and she's still a little... Farmers who own horses or mules, and they only own one of them, will throw a goat in the barn for a barn buddy. In the old days, each boat carried 2 sets of mules. One set would sleep up front in the stable, while the other set pulled this boat for 6 hours at a time. So we are going to have to go across, they're going to have to go across the street, so that's why we're not hooking up for them now. We don't hook them up to a boat and then walk them into Georgetown traffic where everyone's talking on telephones. So we'll meet the mules in just a minute. Any questions about mules?
Can the mule reproduce?
No, they're sterile.
Oh, okay. I just wondered.
And I think in all of recorded history, there's been 53 mules born to other mules. You must have a horse and a donkey to get a mule. Female horse, male donkey.
Do they breed them?
Oh yes, they're very valuable. And what you want is a bigger one. You just get a bigger horse. You know those great big like Clydesdales and stuff. You could actually breed the donkey. Believe it or not, donkeys are very determined little fellas. So either you just want a bigger mule. Now it depends on what you want it for. If you want it like what they call sugar mules, used to work in the sugarcane fields, you want a smaller one. If you want a mine mule, you get a smaller horse. If you want a big draft mule, you get like a big Clydesdale horse. So, oh yes, mules are very, very valuable. These mules weigh about 900 pounds each. We have a couple up at Great Falls, which is where they live. There's 9 of them that work for this park. 2 are brand new and they're being trained, so they aren't working yet. But the other 7, we have 2 that are as big as Clydesdales.
Wow.
They're sisters, Lil and Ellie and Ida. And they're the biggest babies we have. If they see an artist's easel, someone painting out on the towpath with an artist's easel, they act like it's landed from Mars to eat them or something. They just... Mules are into self-preservation. The horse you could make do anything. A mule, if you ask it to do something, its first question is, what's in it for me? And so, if something is different, every time this boat, and the momentum going without having to really dig in and hurt their knees. Now, for you 3 gentlemen who will be working with a lot of tourists, our mules are trained, but they are not tame animals. Any farm animal, you know, if you see they see a bicycle running at them, or runners, or so they're going to be a little jumpy. We would prefer that people stop and give them the right of way. Not because they're wild or dangerous or anything else, but one day I was walking the mules and a guy came down, lickety-split on a bicycle with handlebars like those ram's horns, and he wouldn't stop. And he caught his handlebars is to protect the mules from the tourists. There's something people want to rush up and touch them and pet them, and these girls are working. They're not there. This is not a petting zoo. So we ask people to give them the right of way. Come and visit them anytime in their pens. We'll bring them over and introduce you, but don't bother them while they're working. So if you have any questions on that. This building here behind us, the Sea Catch Restaurant, started its days as a coal company, and it was bought by a man named Herman Holleran. And Mr. Holleran was taking a train ride one day, saw the conductor punching information on the ticket. Start here, go there. Price of the ticket. And he said, hey, I could use that to punch information into cards, like the census. What's your name, what's your age, where were you born? He had a tabulating machine company. And he actually tabulated the U.S. Census, and when he sold his company, it became IBM. Right in that building. There's a plaque on that building. This section of the canal was the most industrialized section. Down here we had flour mills, we had a rendering plant. That's after the slaughterhouse was finished with the beef. They would take the bones and the fat and burn them down and make panda glass. We had a guano dump. A guano, if you know what that is, bird food. And ships would bring entire shipments of bird food, guano, and leave it on this block here. It was used as fertilizer for the farms up the canal. There was the flour mill. There was a paper factory down here. So this was a pretty busy section of the canal. And the boats would come down here. These boats not carry passengers, they carry cargo, and it was usually coal, cement, and limestone. The limestone that was used to build the Smithsonian Castle came down the canal from Sept, Maryland. You know the Red Castle? Okay. So this section, I don't know where you all are from, but I want you to think about the busiest railroad track you've ever seen, where they're really doing industrialized kind of business. That's what it was like. There were catwalks across it. This was not a nice place. This was not a nice ride like you're having. I want you to think of these boats as big 18-wheelers and the people who ran them as long-distance truckers. Because they would go up to Cumberland, Maryland, and they would fill this boat up with 120 tons of cargo. Not only was this rooftop here, this is a fake floor. This floor actually goes down about 2 to 3 feet. We didn't have benches where you're sitting. There were 7 bins on each side. So a total of 14 bins. These boats would go up and they'd go under a coal chute and they'd fill up the 14 bins and put lids down on them to make them watertight. And they'd start down to Georgetown to have the paper factory needed coal. The flour mill needed coal. And so they'd bring 120 tons of coal down. They would tie up next to these factories, and men would come across these catwalks, and they would lower. So it took the families about 6 days to get from Cumberland to Georgetown, down where the car barn is. It took them about 3 days to get from the car barn down in here because there were so many boats lined up. Talk about canal rage. If you tried to pass someone after they'd been waiting in line for 3 days, I'm sure there were some pretty big fistfights out there. See the big rings on the end of this building? Those are some of the last ones left in Georgetown. Tied boats up.
There wasn't room for 2 boats at a time.
Yes, there was. Yes, it's amazing. And what they would do is now, the boats coming down the canal is made up of water from the Potomac. And it all comes down to Georgetown at 2.5 miles an hour. And so, a boat that had 120 tons, she's not going to look at you unless you've got parents to shake at her. Ada in the front will swing around and look at you, so wait till so waist your belt until she swings around. And she can steer the boat, look down into the cabin to check on dinner, wash clothes, hang them up, and work at the same time. Men always look real blank, like they don't know what I'm talking about. The women all nod. They know, I did that last night. Maybe I didn't steer a boat, but I was doing all of that stuff.
Key
So that's
Bridge,
what the
going under
families
Key
did.
Bridge.
We do know from reading their journals, they would buy a picnic ham way up in Cumberland and eat on that for the trip. They ate boatman's bean soup. There were and still are a lot of turtles in the canal. They ate turtle soup, whatever fish they could take out of the Potomac, and whatever food they bought from the lockkeeper. Are there any questions about that? Now, there were a lot of people who didn't like that idea, including one man who was from Washington State. His job was in Washington. He lived in Bethesda, and every chance he got, he would walk on the towpath, not only for exercise, but to clear his mind about his work. Some important Supreme Court cases. William O. Douglas was Supreme Court Justice. He wrote a letter to the editor and he said, "Your idea for a parkway is not a good one. I challenge you to walk with me from Cumberland to Georgetown, and as we walk along, I'm going to tell you the history of the Potomac Valley region, and I'm going to point out the beauties of nature. And when we get to Georgetown, I guarantee you will be a changed man." The editor thought that would be a good newspaper story. He took up the challenge, and he and a bunch of reporters started walking down here. It took them 6 days. And as they walked, every night, people who lived along the canal would come out. They would either join in the hike all the way or part way, or maybe they'd throw a dinner party. And every night the reporters would write the story of what was going on that hike, and it was read in